Well, thanks again. Coming soon for joining us for this for this interesting campfire story. the, the story of Ekron, the vampire. I've got many questions for this bit, but first of all, it was quite interesting doing different voices, having you talk to yourself. We actually haven't really spoken much about the lore of the cactus. It's just ever growing at this point. Now we know that all of the voices
is the greatest creation we have ever come up together with.
Yes, the collaborative efforts of one very overly worked game developer and one very overly worked artist, and we're just like, I actually this. You know what? Right, we're gonna get into this. This is the story of the cactus. Because you came to me, I remember this. You came to me and said, "I've got the idea, and I'm going to give you this art for free." He said, "I've got this idea for your greatest, evilest, most powerful villain that you've had so far." And I'm thinking, I know he's going to make a joke because he gave way too many adjectives. And you sent me this. You sent me this cactus, this picture of this cactus, and I just went, "Oh, here we go." And we came up with a bunch of different ways, because originally you said every time that someone looks away from it and looks back, it's either near something or it's got something on or next to it that is just like a different item each time. And it's like, I think you said at one point it's like loads of crimes have been committed where there's this cactus in the place there, and it's no longer there, and everyone just thinks that villains keep just taking cactuses along with all of this loot. And eventually you just find this cactus sat there in this massive like hall, this massive vault of money and jewels and all this other stuff, and you just went, and the best part is, if they're not careful, the cactus can kill them when they're not looking. And I did actually turn it into an NPC for the Huskonian arc. It was a cactus that actually, it had an owner. It was just a normal cactus, and this guy died, and his powers seeped into this thing's roots, and it gained its master's ability, where it's like a proverbial power, where it could characterize itself. And the way that it works is, when it's being unobserved, multiple possibilities are happening, and then when you look at it, there are multiple sets of possibilities. I can't remember what we actually eventually confirmed it. I think I actually originally had it where it's just like, oh, it's just a random power that we've never confirmed yet. And I think we've now stated that I think it has like some kind of either time or space ability. And the only way that it operates, it's got like a unique ability. So long as no one is seeing it, so long as it's not being observed, it can do almost anything. But the only problem is it has to be theoretically possible within a certain area. So it couldn't, like, say, for instance, just suddenly set off a nuclear bomb or anything. But if it was in a room where there was a button and everyone looked away from the button and everyone looked away from the cactus, it could just suddenly, the button is just pressed and they look over and the cactus is just planted next to the button. And it's like, nuclear device set off. And we had this, and eventually the way that the cactus was defeated was a character known as Cosmos took the plant, the potted plant, and since they had nature manipulation, they put it into the ground, and they sunk all of its roots into the ground. It's like, now since you theoretically can never move again, because you're planted into this ground, we're now going to leave you, and that's the end of this thing. But we actually had it that the cactus, like, both of the two nature manipulators could hear its internal screaming, and it's like, it doesn't say words, but everyone can you could just feel it, like as if it's like a hall of echoes of like cries of anguished souls, just furious at both of the nature manipulators who do nothing to remove it from this. So yeah, so that was the lore. So thanks again, Coin, for joining. I had a whole list of things that I was going to ask about Ekron, but yeah, we had to talk about that. So
The cactus is the greatest villain that we ever created. The only thing that could potentially, actually, no, the piranha gun is legitimately second best
the
compared to
piranha
the cactus.
gun is the first thing that we actually had that was considered a an outside source collaborative effort object, because you created this. You said, I want to make a gun that does this. I was like, yeah, sure, we'll do it. I was like, I don't know how it's going to work, but we'll just make it work. And there's like this giant tank that fires pressurized water bullets with a piranha in it. And if it hits you, you take like a d6 of damage plus a d6 of like bleed damage as this thing starts gnashing at you. So that was fun.
Oh god, the piranha gun is just the best. Okay, let's get on to the actual.
So, for those of you who don't know, coming soon, entertainment. Not many people know this, even though I always talk about it. You're the artist for the Anime Tales. You do a lot of the art for it. Whenever I can, obviously pay for the commissions, and obviously you did the art for the Campfire Stories, and obviously you've done all of the artwork that everyone sees on the podcasts to do with the Anime Tales. You're the artist for that. But you've played only a couple of games with us. So Ekron, what is Ekron to you? Like, what exactly is this character?
This character, his name wasn't originally Ekron. I cannot remember the name, so I just went with the first name I could think of. And turns out it was the first character I ever made. But this character, who I've dubbed Ekron for the video, is actually the second character I ever made. It was literally the third D&D session I ever played. My GM had a homebrew list of things we could use.
Yeah.
Because I basically never played D&D before. I was going wild. I asked him, hey, can I make a new character? I'm not having fun with this rogue wizard tiefling I have.
Ooh.
It ended up going into a whole meme where I literally would just make a new character every other session. And it got to a point that the GM literally said, and I quote, okay, mate, you really need to stop with this. Just pick a character and stick with it. I went, all right. I made a paladin. He died the next session.
So it's funny because you are actually the biggest meme player in the terms of character deaths amongst every single playtester for the Anime Tales Discord. So you have two big titles under your belt. You have the artist, the guy who literally gives a life to everything, and also the guy who has the most character deaths.
I mean, my favorite powers in fantasy is necromancy, so it's ironic in a way.
We thankfully do have that. So if you ever do come back on to playing any of the playtests, I definitely recommend having a look at reanimation, because I love that power and no one's ever touched it, and it really upsets me.
I used it at first. I use it with the werebore.
Oh yeah, another character.
That guy's still frozen, by the way.
He is. He actually is. We still have it. That it's in canon, because that entire timeline and everything is still like that ended. Like no one else from that canon is now doing anything. But we actually still have it that somewhere in an ether space is just a giant chunk of ice where there's a dragon Dovma and a werebore frozen in combat together in a giant chunk of ice, and it's like, yep, that we don't know when / if that'll ever come out anywhere, but that was the first character that you had that didn't die, but that couldn't be played anymore until the player decided to unfreeze you, and it's that thing of like we never came back to it. So you then started, funnily enough, playing as a vampire character, Malkrin Dargovich. Now, I remember this name only because it took me so gosh darn long for me to remember that name, that it's now engraved into my brain. And that guy died after about 3 sessions. And then you made Jaskar, who died after 2 sessions. And then Jimmy, who died after the 2nd session. And your first
I wanted Jimmy to last.
He even had immortality, and you somehow broke that. And the first ever character that you ever made was Zane, the vampire dragon, and he died in that one shot.
Here's the thing. I think my rolls are cursed.
Oh no, they are. I've seen them. Like, I've never seen luck that bad, other than Alex, but even then, I think we had a game and you were on with Alex. They were playing as Irving. And you were playing as John Johnson, doer of Thing at Place, and you had the worst roles. And you even said, like, oh, what was it? Alex even said they said, "Oh, come on, mate, you don't have anywhere near as bad as luck as I do." And I just went, "Give it a second." And you just went, "All right, I'm gonna roll just a d20," and you got like a 4. And it's like that wasn't even for anything, and it was just that thing of, this is a good start to the day.
The best part about this is that my luck isn't this bad when I'm actually the storyteller. When I'm the storyteller, it reverses. And and I'm actually a storyteller who wants players to actively tell a story. I don't like killing them.
I'm not a big fan of it either, but when the mechanics call for it, you have to. This is me anyway, as a DM. When the mechanics call for it, you have to sort of let it go, because otherwise, if you keep fudging it, eventually it's like, well, we are effectively immortal.
Well, I put it into turn. I actually let my players see my rolls a lot of the time because they know me, because they know that my rolls are weird. So I just go, okay, you're fighting this giant tooth fairy thing I created.
Of course.
There's a story behind that. I'm not joking. And they were like, all right, this won't be too hard. They ended up killing it, but it ended up getting 3 crits in a row. Almost down to player.
Yikes.
And everyone was just like, that was easy, but also, what the fuck?
So I got a crit on a character, on a boss, and it did nothing. And then on the 24-hour campaign, I actually got a crit with one of my mini bosses, and it damn near like one-shot a player, damn near killed them. And it was this thing of just like I think the meme of me is just that I power game, but that's kind of the whole point of the system. Sometimes is you can play as a power gamer, and it's like, oh, this massive over the top comic book, brawl 'em up, and you got all of these really cool epic fights.
And then we have Discar.
And then we just have Discar. So moving back to Ekron though, the vampire. So what system was Ekron made on, or this vampire?
So I actually started out role playing not with any tabletop RPG system. I actually started out playing through an MMO called Elder Scrolls Online.
Okay.
At the time when I was playing, the players would just hang around taverns and do a little bit of role play in the chat, basically that kind of stuff. Eventually, one of the players I ended up making friends with ended up telling me, "Hey, man, there's this game called Dungeons and Dragons 5th Edition. You want to try it?" I was like, sure.
And
So I ended up making a tiefling rogue and ended up multi-classing into a wizard.
So was your first ever vampire character? Was that on D&D, or was this specific character in another system?
This was on D&D, yes.
Okay.
This character was using a homebrew class that the GM allowed.
Oh, okay.
I ended up playing it, and then I ended up telling the GM, "This class is broken. We may want to ban it from now on." Because here's the thing, this class literally could not die unless you took sunlight damage.
I was okay, so that's actually kind of interesting, because I actually wrote down in my notes what was his weaknesses as a vampire. Just sunlight. So silver, rushing water, garlic, even stake through the heart. None of that did anything to him.
The stake through the heart paralyzed him.
Ah, okay.
But otherwise did not kill him. Nothing could kill him except sunlight. That was the most broken class I've ever seen. And now that I'm a storyteller, I look back on that and I'm like, I'm not allowing homebrew in a lot of my games for that reason.
I see with Animite Tales I do, but only because the system that we have for homebrew is every special ability that you create on top of another ability or every ability that you create has to have a weakness, a downside, a limitation. And I mean, we even had it for you because it was like you could regenerate more health and deal more damage through health absorption using your vampiric bite. And then you had like the downside of like taking more fire and energy damage and passively taking damage from the sun. And it was like that was such a cool aspect of like, yeah, I'll just basically make my character a vampire, and in these ways like he takes damage. So we have stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I'm fine with homebrew. It's the I have no weaknesses and therefore I cannot die. Those kind of things. I'm
Yeah,
like,
that bugs me as well. I'm not a fan of it. Even as a player, I look at that kind of stuff and I'm like, this is boring. I don't like this.
I actually did have a player who actually did have effectively immortality. Well, I've had two. One who just had healing factor, like so was basically like Deadpool, could just keep regenerating. But I
And then
knew
you
that...
had Jimmy.
Okay, three. I had Jimmy who had like the Dark Souls immortality, but it was every 24 hours after he died, he'd come back to the last place that he slept. But if he died within less than 24 hours after he died originally, he then couldn't come back ever again. But the other character was my brother's character, Phileas Soul, who was part Phoenix, and as long as he was in one of his two Phoenix modes, and he died, and as long as his ashes and or body was not submerged in water or hit with nullification, his body would burn up, and within a certain amount of days, it would then regenerate a new body, like he'd just be reborn. And he actually brought himself back after dying, and it was he resurrected, but he had like he lost certain amounts of his powers temporarily. So that was quite fun. That one.
But God.
No, I was just gonna say I've never actually had a character who actually couldn't die. I've had a lot of characters who just refuse or didn't die in situations that I really thought they would die.
Yeah. Yeah, it was bad in game. Everyone came to the consensus, we're banning this class immediately.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. So, you said little girl saved Ekron. Who was she and why did she save him?
Okay, so this is the most bullshit thing in that entire game. I love this guy who introduced me to D&D, but I hate that little girl.
Okay.
Okay, so he was actually using a sort of, Critical Role. He was effectively using that setting at the time.
All right.
So, spoiler warning, I guess. He actually made it to where this girl was secretly a red dragon daughter to one of the main villains in Critical Role.
Okay.
And this character was literally chaotic evil.
All right. With you so far.
And she would just randomly appear throughout the entire session like an overpowered genie and just randomly hurt or help us. And he would roll die just to see if she would do anything. And when I was making the deal with the players, he rolled a secret die, got a certain result, and then immediately used her to blab.
So my opinion, my question for that is, basically this semi-omnipotent character. What was your opinion on that? As a player, not only looking back now as a DM and as a player, but back then as a player, what were your feelings on that?
Bullshit. That's what I thought. Oh, that's what I thought. A character does not need to be that powerful. And that character was literally just apparently knew everything. It was just the Mary Sue. I love the guy who introduced me to fifth edition, but oh my god, did he make mistakes? Everyone makes mistakes, and that was one of his.
I definitely have to admit that I have made many mistakes as a DM, and you have definitely seen quite a lot of them. My biggest one has been my most recent biggest mistake, or at least my most recent biggest mistake, is the campaign that I was doing with you guys, and I had an NPC that was with you. The reveal was really weak because everyone kind of already called who this character was, and also it was just
Our motivation. And our motivation was also really weak, to be honest.
Yes. I mean, the scheduling didn't. The scheduling with other people also didn't help, and I think to be honest, we were all looking for an out, which was a shame. If people who don't know, which no one would, because it was more of a private one, I did a sort of supernatural style campaign, where everyone's working for death, but they didn't know it until like the second or third episode or session, and then it was just like, oh, we've got death on our side, and he's like, no, I can't do these things, and then it was just like, hang on a second, so this omnipotent being, this angel of death that can't die but can kill anything, can't kill immortals, and he wants us to do it. If we say no, he'll kill us. Well, there are some gaps in his knowledge, but he's still really powerful. And it was. I think someone put it the best way. Is like, at that point, it's not that we were being railroaded; it was more that we were being enslaved by an NPC. I've had don't get me wrong. I've had gods and demigods and demons inside of a campaign before, and it's gone relatively well because they've not been always on them.
It's hard to make these characters work. It's possible, but it's hard.
It is a lot of work. I mean, for me, I usually have it that the gods, the angels, whatever, they're more of an extra dimensional force, or even they're a thing that only appears when you break certain ridiculous rules of cosmic level. Like, I don't mean as in like, oh, the god of the god of life comes down because you try to bring someone back from the dead. I mean as in like, you literally try and kill all life in the universe, or with using a power from like a god realm or something, or specifically Helios, the angel of the multiverse. He will only attack you if you try to time travel in another multiverse that is not your own original universe. He also doesn't like messing with time and the multiverse, because if you alter timelines in another universe and go to another one, you can delete universes. And because of that, that's then when Helios comes after you as the sentinel of reality. And he's not like omnipotent, like he knows a lot of things because of he's literally a being in the in between dimensions. But
it's hard to justify anything that's even near omnipotent, because it's at that point players ask, well, why can't you do this? And then you have to try to make up an excuse, or even if you came up with an excuse and then you say it and you're like, this does not actually work, does it? And the players just go, no.
On the bright side, Helios worked well only because of one reason, because he had a semi-mortal form. Like they actually fought him, and he did win, but he had a specific reasoning and goal. Like his whole thing wasn't to kill the whole party; it was to punish, or at least to teach them a lesson, and state that, like, look, if you do this again, I will have to come back. And they broke the rules of Helios again, and he came back, and this time he killed 2 of the players because they tried to attack him. Later on, they were to find out that he was an actual boss and he can be killed, but when he dies, his soul and the rest of his being just returns to the inner dimension. So it's like, you can kill him in the physical world, yeah, but he'll then eventually return, and it's just, again, he's immortal, but his physical body can.
Yeah, immortal characters aren't my cup of tea, which is...
Well, the thing is, I would prefer a type of immortality that isn't necessarily, oh, damage doesn't matter. I'm not a fan of that. I much prefer the concept of, hey, if I can keep damaging you enough, then you'll either go unconscious or you will die. It just means that death doesn't stick.
I'm not a fan of that too much. But then again, I'm the kind of guy who actually, how do I put it into simple terms? It's easier to have stakes if something can die. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Especially because if you feel like the opponent that you're fighting against is actually throwing these stakes at you. I'm now thinking of stake. Because obviously, we actually covered this in the weakness podcast. It's like a villain is more believable when they have a weakness. A hero is more relatable. Because if a villain can do, because the reason that's why we said more believable, is because a villain or an antagonist who has a weakness is therefore it's like, okay, this is more believable because they can be defeated at some point. There just is a limit to what they can do, or at least there's a thing that can stop them. Whereas it's like with Superman, it's more relatable him actually having emotional and physical weaknesses.
I'm not a fan of. I will have to say
I
it
mean,
like this.
I'm not a massive fan of Superman.
Yeah,
because
but
that he is so bullshit. He's massively
yeah,
OP.
he started out in a very interesting way. He was supposed to represent something, and now modern authors can't get him right. And
I
I
will
just
have to agree to some degree. I like a few of the stories they do with him, but
most of them are bullshit.
I mean, to be fair, he can lift up a book of infinity.
Half infinity.
I'm sorry, what is half of infinity? Oh, that's right.
It's
In
half of
effing
infinity.
finity.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
The last question I actually have here is so Ekron, what class was he in, and roughly what abilities did he have?
He was literally a homebrew class that's my GM took offline. It was called the vampire class. Not
Okay.
even a joke. Literally just vampire.
It makes sense
That
that
was
it's a
it.
class rather than a race, though, because any race could be theoretically a vampire.
Exactly. That was what that is. And nowadays, one of my favorite RPGs. Sorry, Anime Tales, but I still have other RPGs I like too. No
Yeah.
offense.
No, that's fine.
And in one of my favorite RPGs, Shadow of the Demon Lord, they actually have a vampire race, but it's more of a template race. You can apply it to humans. But that's because of game lore. Only humans can be vampires in that game.
Yeah, yeah.
But in this, no, this was when I was starting out. I had no idea anything about tabletop RPGs. There was nothing like that. I just went, okay, this is a vampire class. I like vampires. Let's see where it goes. It did not go well.
Okay. Well, at least you tried something. That's the most important thing. I think you've played a vampire in two separate circumstances in the Animite Tales.
I love vampires. I will not lie.
No, I know you do. we've had discussions and talks for quite a long time, and I know you've spoken to me for hours about hours about making a vampire and a vampire masquerade. There was actually
Vampire Masquerade is a great game. Its 5th edition is awesome. Not the point. Back to the game. Back to this.
actually I'm gonna okay, so I'm actually gonna ambush you with this. So for the sake of storytelling, do you think that your character's death was interesting, or do you think that it was just something that happened?
In this case, no, it wasn't interesting. It wasn't story driven, and I want everything to have some kind of impact, even if it's a minuscule one. This one was just this was an overpowered character, had to die. Let's get rid of him. There was no story, there was nothing to be told, and quite frankly, at the end of the day, at the end of that campaign, it didn't add anything to the game. It was just a
Well,
character they encountered, got rid of, and we don't even remember him to this day. Barely.
Well, I'm gonna only because I know so little, and based on how you told the story, I'm gonna say it does, and here's why. You said that it was a story of hubris. Your character was attacked after being caught by a bunch of vampire hunters.
Oh,
Was
this is actually
paralyzed.
something the I'm not gonna lie here. This is actually something the storyteller also got wrong again, but he admitted to it, and I also was like, yeah, it should have been done better. He introduced me in the worst way possible, which
Okay,
he literally first he dropped me off in the middle of the woods during the day.
brilliant. Go on.
He immediately plopped me right next to the camp of the confirmed vampire hunter. But again, this was before I actually started getting into tabletop RPGs. I didn't have the thought, maybe I should talk to the other players before making a character. That didn't cross my mind.
Hmm.
So, partially on me, but also the GM actually went on to say, and I quote, this was a mistake, and he would have changed it if he had a chance.
Hey, at least he learned something.
He did, and I learned something as well. Never use homebrew that can do that.
I will say though, the reason as to why I like it is because, as you said, it was a hubris story. Your character was defeated and killed, and it ultimately tells a story of just because that you're immortal, just because you only have one true weakness, it doesn't mean that people won't exploit it. It also
Yeah,
doesn't mean
there's
that people
that.
can't.
There's that. But I do have to point out that class was overpowered. Everything about that was overpowered, and that meaning was only applied later in hindsight.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I will say the the most I'd say the most poignant or the most interesting death that we've ever had of yours, because again we've had like 6 deaths now for your character. I think it's only 4 in all honesty, but the one that actually had the most impact in the terms of like actually looking back at it was Malkarin Dargovich, because he attacked a bunch of people in their homes, and then an alarm was called by one of them screaming in their house. You were then attacked by multiple guards, and you kept getting bad rolls. But in the story, is this whole thing of Malkarin, believer of no human, no mortal creature was as powerful as he was, and eventually they killed him. But actually, how it happened was he just succumbed to his injuries, so he was falling unconscious. But he wasn't going to die. And then he hit the wooden flooring, and as his species of vampire, they have a weakness against wood. So as they hit the flooring, it's like maybe I underestimated these people, and then just instant dust. And the funniest bit was the only thing that came back from that story was 2 sessions later, we actually had a courier bring bring my brother's character a jar of dust, and inside of this dust was a dagger, and it was Malkarin's dagger.
It's still amazing.
I absolutely loved that. That was that was brilliant.
And by the way, this is not. By the way, for people who are wondering how many times characters have died in these games, and not just Anime Tales, but in general, a lot.
I'd believe it.
Just some of it is bad storytelling. For, other times it's, oh my god, why do the dice hate me?
I've heard many fables of your bad dice rolls. I've seen, in fact, I have been the bard who has spoken about these bad fables, of some of them anyway. So I know that there are many other tales of the bad dice rolls. Maybe at some point we'll get you back on here and we'll talk about how dice rolls can affect storytelling.
Oh god. And here's the thing. When I'm the storyteller, the dice rolls just go, okay, yeah, he's going to kill people. Let's just give him the good dice rolls. And I'm like, no, I'm not trying to kill these people. And like, too bad, you're killing these people.
Okay, I just need enough damage to sort of average out, so I do around about 10 or 20 or something like that. And it's like, haha, did you say 40? Where is 40 coming from? That's not even in the maximum damage. 40!
The worst part is that actually happened. I'm not joking.
Yeah, that's
there was
happened to me.
Oh god, there was a effing character. There was a character. One of my friends ended up creating for Shadow of the Demon Lord again because one of my favorite games. He made a tree. He made a literal effing tree person who could turn into a tree and everything. He was a fighter that could exploit a person's weakness by targeting their agility score instead of their defense. He ended up fighting an entire army of goat people. And I'm not joking here. He almost won. But those fucking goat people, man.
There's another meme that has cursed you, I'm afraid. As you're known as Coming Soon Entertainment, you're also known as Coin, and others call you Xanath on some of your other games. But I know the biggest meme about you, which is it is apparently your wackiness and randomness, but the biggest one is chickens.
Okay, there's a point to that.
Go on.
Oh, you want me to actually tell you the story? Okay, it's actually not that interesting, but it's basically my character. I literally grew up on TV shows, and one of my favorites was Ed, Edd n Eddy.
I knew you were going to say this. I don't know how, because I don't think you've ever told me this story, but I knew you were going to say it somehow.
It's because Ed. Hold on one second. I'll be right back.
For those of you who are actually listening to any of these and have ever wondered any questions behind your DMs, perhaps ask them exactly why they're doing any of these things. If you like any of these podcasts, and also if you like to hear any extra information on any of the different things that we're doing, check out Twitter, as I post frequently at Animite Tales. I'm also known as Ongoer Joe. You can also check out my YouTube channel, The Baitarians. I also do Twitch streams every now and again on Joey the Mystic. So if you guys are interested in that, check that out.
I'm back.
That's good. I was just plugging myself. I mean, as in my channels.
Oh, my.
I've suddenly made this sound so much worse. Anyway, so Coin, you've done many different stories. You've been in many different stories. You've played and DM'd, GM'd. You've done all sorts of different things. If you were to say, because as I've had a look at it, if you were to say, what is your favorite storytelling cliche that has ever been used or you've ever used in a tabletop RPG story? Your favorite cliche to be used.
Okay, that's going to be hard to think.
Whether it's good or bad, it's just your favorite because it stood out to you.
The players destroy the final boss in the most weird way I can think of.
Go
Every
on.
effing time.
Have you got any examples?
Well, in Shadow of the Demon Lord, I have actually multiple examples. I actually created a demon, because Demon Lord is literally about demons. I made a giant effing demon that was literally just an embodiment of the Disney Corporation. No context.
None needed. Continue.
And this character, who was a pixie, reskinned to be a bat, used a teleportation spell, who we used it wrong, by the way. We used it completely wrong. But I was so tired at the time, I was like, okay, yeah, it works. And then they were like, so they're dead. I was like, what? And then I looked at it and was like, oh, crap. So it ended up creating a small hole in the side of a cliff. she basically put it into a cliff, and out of that hole rained bees constantly. The players just looked at the hole, put a rock over it, and was like, "This will work."
Huh. That is certainly wacky. I think the weirdest one for me is again, as I said, I can't like my favorite cliche is probably okay. So this is going to be a really weird one. So you know how like human fighters in D&D are like the biggest cliche starting class.
Go on.
So Adamite Tales has at the moment in every single playtest game, we have the cliche that eventually someone will get a sword. And the biggest cliche to that, so far we've seen, is humans build themselves into willpower and they get a katana. So they're just like, yep, I have this sword and it's specifically a single-edged, it's a katana, it's a samurai sword. It's like they don't even try to like figure out different adjectives to like create the falsehood of this thing. It's like it's kind of like a curved. You know what? It's a katana. And it's like, yeah, I'm a human, have no powers, but I have my capabilities of the ways of the samurai. And then all of a sudden they go, oh, and I also use willpower. I imbue my will, my spirit into this sword. And then when I hit anyone who has powers, it hits them as if their powers aren't working. It doesn't nullify them, but it just hits them as if it ignores their powers. And it's like, everyone does it. I have no problem with this. I want to point this. But it is a cliche. And
I have never done this.
It's really funny because almost every game that you've played in, you've not had a willpower user. But you did play in a game where a person was using a katana, and that was you playing as Jimmy.
The ironic part was I didn't use him as a willpower user. Jimmy was a blade, though.
Oh, yeah.
So he was supposed to be just that one character nobody took seriously.
Yet he got quite a lot of the army with him. Dude, your charisma rolls are on fire.
It's only whenever it's not oh fuck! It's only when it's not supposed to work when it works.
You know what? As once a very wise and possibly soon to be bankrupt man once said, it just works. It just works.
Oh my god! Yeah, that company's definitely going to go bankrupt at some point.
I hate the idea of it because I love the company so much. Yeah, well,
I love the games. Hate the company.
Games. Yeah. To be fair, but nevertheless, thank you again, Coin, for joining me with this. To those of you who again don't know who I'm talking to, you were and have been and presumably still will be coming soon entertainment.
You know what? I'm just gonna say it right now. I quit. I'm kidding. This is if for people who don't know, I really am the most random this guy has ever met.
Yeah. There will be moments where you'll contact me and I'll mispronounce something, and you'll just be like, okay, well, bye then. And I'll just be like, what? I'll look back. I still remember this. I still cannot live this down because I won't let myself live this down. And I think you know what I'm about to say. You sent me artwork, and I really loved it. I said, yeah, it's not bad. As a matter of fact, like I really quite like it. And for some reason, Not wasn't in that. And it's like, yeah, it's bad. I really like it. And instead it's like, it's bad, I like it. And not only did I not add really, I also didn't add not. So it's that thing. I was like, it's bad, I like it.
And I knew it was a typo, but I was like, you know what? Let's go with it.
I looked back at the best thing is you knew that it was a typo. I didn't realize that I had done a typo, and I just see you just going, fine, I'm scrapping the whole thing, and I just went, what is with this guy? What is wrong with him? Clicked on it, and I went, oh no. frantically typing. So yeah. Anyway, if you liked what we were doing here, stay tuned for any more of the campfire stories. This has been a campfire story with Coming Soon Entertainment. Do you have any channels or any pages that you want to plug?
Considering I don't really care much about my image, I'm gonna grab something random. One second. This picture of a cat. I will plug this cat. Okay, I'm joking. I guess my YouTube channel and Twitter, I guess.
Okay. What is the name of both YouTube channel and the Twitter?
Coming Soon Entertainment. Twitter is. Give me a second to look this up because I need to change that fish picture. I just need to change it. I kind of want to keep it because it's the most disturbing thing I have ever seen.
Is this
But
a
also,
purple sock puppet, by the way?
what happened to my purple sock puppet? I don't know.
I liked the purple sock puppet. It's how
I
I always recognize your.
I
thing.
might bring it back at some point, but for now, the creepy fish thing is the thing that is on my Twitter, and it bothers me so much.
To those of you who also don't know, a lot of people that I follow on Twitter have recently changed all of their things. So when I at them or when I'm like looking for any of their content, I just scroll by it because I don't recognize their new Twitter thing. I even got liked by, like, one of my things got liked by Cookie, and I was just like, I have no idea. I've never seen this person before, without even reading what their Twitter handle was that I had been reading for so many times. And eventually I was like, actually, that's a good point. I haven't spoken to Cookie in a while. Who's this new person that I've seen on my messages? Look at it. And I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot. They changed their handle. And Coolboy Shane changed his on during Halloween. And even that threw me off. And all it was him being a skeleton. Like, it was no different from what he looked like, just skeleton.
I changed mine to like a weird mimic coin for a little bit before I changed it to a fish, whatever this is. I don't know what this is. I drew this one day, like, you know what? I'm just going to draw and see what I come up with. I made this, and I'm like, what is this? Why does it give me nightmares?
You know what gives me nightmares? Not ending the recording yet.
We're not ending the recording anytime soon. Anyway, jokes aside, Twitter handle is coming soon _coin. And the YouTube channel is Coming Soon Entertainment. Look for the thing with cringy old FNAF animations because I will never live that down myself.
I've not seen them up until now, but when I come off of this, I'm now going to watch them.
Please don't.
And best part is, I'm going to watch them on full screen because I've got my
Xbox
big old TV. So
I may be good at animating, but I'm also really, really, really ashamed at the same time. Not because of the FNAF content, but because of the animation quality.
Don't worry. We all have secrets.
Yeah, we all know yours, though. You need to stop wearing those socks.
Look, these socks are great. Like, they look like slippers.
They're made of the skin of the children. Stop it.
I mean, I'll never tell if you won't. Oh, wait, we're still recording. That's all, folks. This has been a train wreck of a discussion video that we have tried to keep up after talking about Ekron, the adventurous and now very much dead vampire. Thank you yet again, Coming Soon. Hopefully we'll have you on again where you talk about another story at some other time. But until then, thanks for coming on.
Oh, before we do anything else.
Yes.
Chickens. Cut the recording.
Bye!